want to hear my story? You really wish to know what happened to me during the Third War? Why would you be interested in the tale of an old separatist? Yes, I know it is the 20th anniversary of the day the war ended. Oh, very well. If you insist. My race was still recovering from the blows dealt to it during the First and Second Wars. The separation from the Covenant, and then the embarrassment of the rogue shipmaster 5 years later, strained the Sangheili Council. Supply drain from both wars left us with a shortage of food, weapons, and warriors. The Council could not do anything to fix our vulnerable state. They were too busy squabbling amongst each other. The Arbiter tried his best, but he was not a politician. He was the leader of a military that no longer existed. The people of Sanghelios had no one to turn to. Work was near impossible to find. Food and precious water were scarce. Lives fell apart. But then, he came.
In addition of being of a high rank, Krudon was an elegant and persuasive speaker. He told us of a glorious campaign that would restore the honor of the Sangheili, another war that would bestow upon us a new planet, one that had recently been made fresh and ripe for the picking, Planet Reach.
He was a hand sending us salvation, a light in the darkness, almost too good to be true, but he was real, and he was here. Krudon quickly became popular across all fields of Sangheili. The first to join him were the war veterans, the survivors of the First War who had placed their honor above all. Zealots, honor guards, field marshals, fighters who no longer had a war to fight. Next were the youngest and newest warriors, those eager to finally battle the legendary humans their predecessors had previously fought. They had to gain their honor, and Krudon was giving them a perfect opportunity to do so. I was one of those ignorant, impressionable fools. I knew nothing of war. I never listened to my elders, who warned me of the hells of battle. When I signed up for the campaign, along with my friends Tor Kosum and Lem Fadron, I thought only of myself and how many humans I would kill in glorious combat. After joining Krudon's forces, Tor, Lem, and I were warned to keep quiet about the operation. Krudon's campaign was not sanctioned by the Council or the human-loving Arbiter, and it had to be kept secret. We relished in this rebellion, a poke in the eye of the bickering, useless Council. Soon, the time came. Tor was assigned to a different lance, and separated from Lem and I. Then, we boarded our ships, and left Sanghelios. The plan started perfectly. Using supreme diplomatic skills and articles in the Human Sangheili Treaty, Krudon and his second-in-command, Governor Ord Nocom, peacefully entered negotiations with the UNSC on Reach. His claim was that because the Covenant had conquered Reach in 2552, the elites, being former members of the Covenant, owned a share of the planet. The humans reluctantly saw the claim as true, and we were given half of the newly re-terraformed planet to settle. We waited, and waited, and waited for the Fleetmaster's signal. Finally, one night, our patience paid off. Under the Governor's direction through orders of the Fleetmaster, the first team struck in the dead of night. Our weapons and tanks were revealed, and we attacked the large mountain city of Little Rock, humanity's main bastion on Reach. To prevent the humans from calling for help, we placed a citywide communications jam on Little Rock. The UNSC had no idea what was taking place on Reach, nor did the Sangheili Council. No aid was coming to Little Rock. The The human defenders did what they could, but there was too many of us. We cut them down like a scythe in the field. Lem and I fought gallantly. I was even awarded a field promotion. It was purely glorious. The humans never knew what hit them. By morning, we controlled half the city. Then things started to go wrong. The governor and, essentially, the fleet master ordered all human civilians to be rounded up and executed. Initially, I thought the order was a jest. Defeating soldiers in battle was one thing, but slaughtering unarmed civilians was not honorable. In fact, it went straight against our code of honor. Despite this, many warriors of all ranks followed through with the order. I was not one of them. As I did my best to avoid killing the defenseless and pondered how our great leader had been taken by this madness, Lem was elected into the Ranger Corps, and we had to part ways. For a few days, I was left alone in an army I no longer trusted. Then, one day, as I was staying in my Lance's barracks, news came through. A group of humans had blasted through our blockade and contacted the UNSC for help. The secret was out. At the same time, a field marshal who had failed to kill human civilians was imprisoned by the governor. Turmoil erupted. Several warriors whispered of rebellion. Not long after, word got around that a small group of warriors had freed the imprisoned field marshal, but had been stopped by Krudon, who had then executed the field marshal, and later did the same to Governor Nocom. This was the final spark that ignited the fire of rebellion. Many warriors wiped the color from their armor in honor of the dead field marshal who had had his rank stripped from him. These warriors called themselves Separatists, and they began to battle the Fleet Master's forces in the open streets of Little Rock. The day after the rebellion began, I was approached by none other than my old friend, Tor Kosin. He had been assigned to a stealth lance, and his commanding officer was going to join the Separatists the next day. Tor had come to ask me to join with them. I was doubtful at first. The Fleet Master's loyalists outnumbered the Separatists 4-1, but I remembered the hundreds of human civilians that had been massacred, and the honor that had been shattered, and I accepted his offer. The next day, the transition was smooth. We met with the Separatist leader, an ex-zealot named Zaz Solak, and he accepted us into his ranks. We melded with the other rebels, and operations began immediately. Krudon sent patrols to find our hidden base. We destroyed those. He called down more shipments of new weapons and supplies. We raided those. Hour by hour, our numbers and strength grew. But it was not enough. After 3 days, we found ourselves cornered in a sector of the city. We would have been wiped out, were it not for the reappearance of one previously thought dead, Field Marshal Uze Nostrom, the original spark of revolution. Under his new leadership, we rallied and got the upper hand on the Loyalists. Nostrom did not waste any time. Immediately, we launched a counterattack on one of Krudon's fortresses. With the help of the remnants of the human defenders, we punched through Krudon's defenses. His latest second-in-command was killed, but the Fleetmaster himself slipped away at the final moments. We had suffered heavy losses in the failed attack. Many of our warriors lay dead, and every last human had been killed. Nostrom ordered us to hide until human reinforcements arrived, and hide we did. Using subterranean tunnels, sewers, and abandoned UNSC bases, we avoided confrontations with the Loyalists. As we hid, rumors came around of a Loyalist superweapon, a replacement for the one destroyed by the humans before the revolution. Nostrom sent stealth teams to investigate the rumors. While Tor was on one of these missions, he found Lem and a few other warriors hiding from the Fleetmaster. Finally, my friends and I were back together. The human reinforcements finally arrived and battled their way into the city. Field Marshal Nostrom quickly initiated contact with them and joined our forces together into the reformed Separatist alliance. Finally, humans and Sangheili fought side by side against a common foe in several large-scale battles for the first time since the last days of the Human Covenant War. Tor, Lem, and I were put with a human squad. These mixed-bag teams were becoming very common in the Alliance. We were led by one Sergeant Major Braden Chopper. Chopper was not pleased to have Sangheili under his command. It was in this squad that I met Corporal Christy Shear. Corporal Shear was a kind, cheerful human, who I am told was good-looking for her species. In contrast to Sergeant Chopper, Christy showed the good side of the humans. She kept our spirits up and the squad together. I enjoyed fighting alongside her, and she made the insults the Chopper gave us bearable. We were deployed all over Little Rock, from one end of the city to the other, battling the Loyalists wherever we went. Eventually, the leaders of the Alliance located Krudon's superweapon, and our band was split up. Chopper and Christy were sent to aid the assault on the Disruptor. I said goodbye to my human friend, confident the war would be over soon, and left to aid the Field Marshal. None of us saw what was coming. I still wonder if it could have been prevented. At the last second, when victory seemed assured, Krudon activated the Disruptor. All the humans attacking it were wiped out. I was crushed to hear of Christie's death. Even the loss of Chopper saddened me. As bigoted as he was, he did not deserve that fate. To make matters worse, an earthquake destroyed most of Little Rock, and Nostrom was lost to us. That was our darkest hour. My friends and I wandered the streets, leaderless, guideless, and outnumbered. Finally, we were reunited with Commander Solok, who was searching for the Field Marshal. We found him with the human champion, the female Spartan. After that, Solok led us to the Alliance's makeshift base. Slowly, carefully, the Alliance started to pull itself back together. Lem, Tor, and I were sent back into combat against the Loyalists, but it was not the same. There was no Chrissy to make us laugh, to remind us that things could not get any worse. The fighting felt empty and pointless without her. This lasted for 2 of the longest days of my whole life. I thought defeat was imminent. In those days, we heard much about the heroes of the Alliance, as well as their losses. The humans were hurting the worst. Most of them had been wiped out by the Disruptor. Yet the Spartan, somehow, was still alive and fighting when so many had been killed. It was tales of her bravado and sacrifice that kept us going in the last days of the war. Our own leader, Field Marshal Nostrom, also pushed on, setting an example for us all. The final days tested our external and internal strength more than anything else. To this day I still wonder what twist of fate made me endure to the end. Tor and Lem, too, stayed by my side. The three of us fought on, no longer for honor or glory, but for survival. We had grown in those few weeks, matured, and irreversibly changed. The time came when the Alliance could take no more. We all knew it would sooner or later. Our leaders, our heroes, signed themselves on to a suicide mission that would be our last chance at stopping the Fleetmaster. Nostrom informed us of the plan, and told us to leave. How could we abandon our great leader in the darkest time? But we had no choice. As Nostrom dedicated himself to aiding the Spartan, command of the Separatists was returned to Solok, and we fled the city. It was on our way out that I heard the transmission. It was weak, it was faint, but it was there, and the voice was a voice I never thought I would hear again. It seemed that Christie and Chopper had never made it to the Disruptor. Their transport had been shot down miles away, in fact, and they had been trapped there for days. Christie was alive. I knew what I had to do. I tried to ask my friends to stay, but they would not leave me, so we went together on our own suicide mission. We ran for what seemed like days, with only the source of the transmission to guide us. We stopped for no enemy, for no obstacle, for no rest. Nothing could impede us. Nothing took our attention away from finding our friends. We found them near one of Little Rock's ports. Christie was struggling to hold off the few attackers that remained. She had been using every last bit of ammunition from the destroyed transport. Chopper was unconscious. He had been grievously injured in the crash. Tor, Lem, and I rushed in to aid Christie, just as Loyalist reinforcements arrived. The few of us could not kill them all. We had only one option. I slung Chopper's unconscious form across my back and jumped into the sea. I swam for hours, still supporting Chopper's weight. It may have been the most exhausting thing I have ever done. At last, we reached an island, well away from the war-torn city. As we treated Chopper's wounds, the flash of the Disruptor illuminated us, despite being miles away. It was then I knew that Nostrom was dead. We were stranded on the island for 3 days. Everyone must have thought us dead. We located a fallen human ship that contained supplies we carefully rationed. Tor started repairing the ship's transmitter, as to send a distress call. Lem, being the best medic, tended to Chopper, who still did not wake. Christie and I, well, we just talked. We swapped tales of anything that came to mind. Life before the war, families, what we were going to do next. But we avoided speaking of the war itself. The carnage, the pain. It was over now. We no longer had to worry about when death would take us. In fact, we no longer had to worry about anything. My friends and I experienced 3 days of paradise. When we were finally recovered, we learned of everything that had taken place. Nostrom and the Spartan were both dead. They had given their lives to stop Krudon, who had been eliminated by his own weapon. Sometimes the price of victory is higher than that of failure. Solek had dissolved the Separatists. They were no longer needed. The human leader had lived, as well as a strange soldier in black armor. The Loyalists were shattered. Most had been eradicated in the final blast. Krudon's fleet had blasted off into the unknown regions of the galaxy, and would soon be hunted down. The Third War was over. The Alliance had won. Christie, Lem, Tor, and I all attended the memorial ceremony 2 weeks after the war's end. Chopper was still in a coma, but he would go on to live. We saw the human leader dedicate a massive statue to the victims of the war. On the memorial lay one weapon for every human or separatist that had been killed. As I looked at the weapons, I realized that not a single one of them represented my friends. They were still here, standing around me. That is a privilege very few can claim to have. Another thought occurred to me. I had come to the war seeking honor. By rescuing Chopper, a bigot yet an ally, I had gained that honor. Sometimes, things have a way of working out to your advantage. The aftershock of the Third War is still felt today. While the Council of Sanghelios has become more unified in an attempt to prevent individuals like the Fleetmaster from coming to power, the human government is unraveling. Factions are appearing, lines are being drawn, and I fear the drums of battle will soon sound again. As the humans prepare themselves for a civil war, the Council has decreed that the Sangheili, for the human sakes and our own, must stay out of human business. No aid, no contact whatsoever. I have not seen Christie in 12 years. Sometimes, I think back to those happy days on the island, where everything was perfect. Often I wish I could hold on to those days for eternity, but the universe must go on as it does. Peace is always followed by war, and war returns before scars can fully heal. The only hope for the humans to pull themselves out of conflict is the black-armored warrior, and he was sent after the Loyalists in the Outer Rim. No one has seen or heard from him in 15 years. This will likely be the last contact between humans and Sangheili for some time. Before you go, remember this. Although the future is uncertain, war will inevitably come. When it does, do not only remember your heroes. Everyone has a story, and they are no less important than a courageous Spartan warrior, an idealistic field marshal, or a villainous fleet master. I am Vox Nahar, and I leave you with the hope that you will be able to turn from the past and prevent further tragedy before it happens.